The Get On Living Safely campaign is sponsoring this podcast to remind you to keep your spending in the community. Supporting local businesses keeps food on the table for our friends and neighbors. Follow them on social media and learn more at getonlivingsafely.com. We talked with contemporary watercolor artist Jean Lukens about growing up, her process in creating new work, changes during COVID, getting ready for a show, one of her more recent exhibitions, as well as what's next for this artist. You can find more conversations on our website, lacrosselocal.com. I'm Amy.
And I'm Brent.
And this is Lacrosse Local.
Well, hello there. My name is Jean Lukens. I was born in Stevens Point, and I went to university at Whitewater, moved out to California to Santa Cruz, and lived there for 25 years and got into painting out there, and then moved back home a couple years ago because my mother was ill. I got into painting because I was teaching Montessori. I'm a preschool Montessori teacher, and I retired from that, and I went back to Cabrillo College and took classes in watercolor, printmaking, photography, and I landed on watercolor because it was so fun. I went from there.
For someone who doesn't know your watercolor work, how would you describe it?
Well, it's not traditional, for one thing. The colors are more vibrant. I only use transparent watercolors. And then I add ink work when I feel the watercolor washes are complete. So you get drawn in by the color, and then you move in closer and you see the ink work. And oftentimes people are standing with their noses right up against the painting going, oh, look at this, look at that, which is what I really want for the viewer to do, getting closer.
So you talked about kind of like the ink water work, you're kind of incorporating some mixed media. How do you go about creating new work? Is it happy accidents, or do you have a sketch before you start?
I tried my darndest to do thumbnail sketches, and that doesn't work for me. I take photographs. Sometimes I work from photographs. Sometimes I work just from what I see in front of me. A lot of it, once the exterior lines are laid down, then it comes out of my head. So if you're at all familiar with Gauguin's work, the same sort of thing. You get the images down and then you just go for it.
So in some capacity, do you allow it to kind of take form on its own?
When you hear people say it takes me where I didn't think I was going to go, it's really true. Because if you're going to go for balance and harmony, color, line, etc., then every time you put a color down, you need to have a balance somewhere. Every time you put a line down, there needs to be diversity of line, thick, thin, whatever, for visual interest. And then I also have to do things that get me excited. I had been to a number of watercolor workshops, and at the end of one of them, I said, I'm really dying to put ink work on my painting. And the guy that was leading the workshop said, and I know this intellectually, well, as the artist, you can do anything you want. Well, he took my little book and wrote down, I give Jean permission to use any and all black. And then it just went, okay. That's why it's not real traditional, because it is a little bit more mixed media. And then for the very end, I take a X-Acto knife and carve into the painting and remove layers of paper. So it ends up looking very architectural with a really cool texture.
Do you sometimes start a process and you start kind of cutting down these layers and working on it? Is there any time you're just like, I'm done with this one and toss it? Or do you kind of set it aside? Or does it usually, from creation to end, you usually finish them?
I get so far and I just really hate what I see in front of me. And I know that I need to keep pushing through, and then it comes out. Or I cut the painting, I cut it down till I can find just the right composition that works for me.
You kind of explained your process and how you go through it. I've talked to a lot of artists and a lot of musicians over the last couple months about COVID being either a time for people to have creativity or a time where it's just almost, you kind of stopped it altogether. How has the process changed for you during this time?
Well, it's been a struggle. I'm used to having like an artist reception where I can speak in person to, 50 to 100 people. And now I have a piece that I'm working on, and I'm not itching to get it done. I just kind of work methodically at it. And to think about where to go after this, I'm not really sure what's going to be available to us. I used to do art fairs here in the state, and I'm not doing that anymore. What I'm going to be depending on, if depending can be the right word, is gallery work. And getting into galleries requires, whatever their protocol is for getting in, sending pictures or whatever. I do florals, still life, and abstracts. I don't do people or landscapes. So in those three areas, there's things that show up time and again, like the iris is a favorite flower of mine, and I do that often. But I don't paint thinking of a gallery. I paint because I like it. So I'll be working on florals, and then I'm kind of sick of doing that, and then I'll work on a still life or an abstract, so I can go back and forth between the three of them.
So what's next for you in this process? What are you working on? What do you hope to accomplish over the next couple of years?
In some ways, I think I'm just going to keep creating and see what comes. I don't have a goal one way or the other. Do I want to be known nationally? Do I want to be known regionally? I just paint because I really have to, because it's the process that I find most engaging. And I don't mind saying goodbye to paintings because I learned something new on each one, actually. Yeah, I would love to sell my work, and to get it in front of as many people as possible would be a goal. And how that comes about, right now, I have no clue.
So if people want to follow along, maybe find out where these either virtual or in-person exhibitions are going on, where could people find out more?
You have to just email me or give me a call. I do not have a website. I've had websites in the past, and they work well for showing people what I do, but quite frankly, they just seem like a glorified business card to me. I have never sold many paintings off of a website. Yes, I can give information of where I'm going to be, but at this point, there's not so much on the horizon for shows.
If people really want to come see your work, they have to hit up those exhibitions or shoot you an email and start the conversation that way.
Absolutely.
Lacrosse Local Podcast is a production of River Travel Media. Do you have an interview idea you would like to share with us? Message us on Facebook at Lacrosse Locals. Subscribe to the Lacrosse Local Podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you like us, rate us 5 stars. We thank you for it.